Hello, and welcome to another recording. This is one of the classes to benefit Eve University. My name is Amoni Panala. You might also know me as Zipporah Panala or Camille Panala. Uh, I frequently get asked to make class recordings, but I don't feel super comfortable recording classes because I don't want people attending the class to feel uncomfortable asking questions that might feel too basic or stupid to ask. So I decided I would put recordings of classes that I make separate from the actual classes I'm teaching um, and provide them all on YouTube. Today we're going to be talking about missions, and all that good stuff. So settle in. We've got some PvE action going on here. Uh, Since there is no class, there will be no question and answer session at the end, but if you'd like, a uh, you can leave a comment or question in the comment section of the video, and I will try to respond when I have an opportunity. Can't promise to get to all of them, but I will do my best. So, today we're going to talk about missions. We're going to talk about why you might want to do missioning. We're going to talk about how you find them, what types of missions are available to you. We'll talk about standings, probably one of the most important aspects to keep in mind when it comes to missioning. We'll talk about doing some prep and actually running the missions. We'll talk about storyline missions, and we'll talk about some ways to get the most out of missions in terms of efficiency. So what is a mission? Well, if you've played any other game before, this is a quest. This is the NPCs telling you, "Hey, go do this thing for me." And they really are that, go pick up some space milk for me. Go grab me some go kill this guy who, cheated me out of some money, or, whatever. These are NPCs give you tasks to do. Um, they're going to have instructions that say, I want you to do this, this, and that, and also maybe if you want to make more money, you can get back to me, by a certain time, and I'll give you some extra money. Hooray. Now, there are a number of reasons why people run missions. You can do it for money, you can do it for loyalty points, you can also do it for standings and security status. So, uh, in my experience, uh, I don't run missions a lot, but in my experience with others who run missions and my own, right, is that oftentimes it's not just one. It is usually you're running it for more than one, or maybe all three at the same time. Um, it also depends on where you're running missions, right? So, running missions in low or nullsec, uh, you might be doing it more for ISK than you're doing it for the standings and security. But we'll get to that. So, how do you find missions? Well, your agency window is probably going to be a good way to start. It's going to give you uh, a layout here. If you go to the agents and missions, it's going to tell you um, it's going to tell you what mission agents are available, what epic arcs arcs are available and where that agent is to start the mission. You can use agent finders, and you can find the career agents. This is um, right in front of you, basically. But it is important to know that these are here, because if you're looking to run missions with a specific faction, right, the agency window is going to tell you where you can find the nearest agent from that faction, or maybe you're looking for a specific corporation, or maybe you're looking for a specific type of mission. Speaking of types of missions, there are actually a number of different types of missions, but um, typically when we are talking about missioning, a lot of people are talking about security agents, and the missions that security agents give. Um, Distribution and mining agents don't give you as much money, um, and frankly, it's kind of meh. Like the missions are very meh. And most annoyingly is that, like, for example, with distribution agents, you'll be doing level ones and level twos where there are combat missions. And it's like, um, I just came here to haul and I'm feeling so attacked right now. Um, so here's security agent missions. Those are going to be the ones where you shoot the bad guys and we all go home happy, right? Distribution is hauling stuff for NPCs. Mining is just like it sounds. You mine for NPCs and bring the ore to them. Um, R&D agents, on the other hand, these are missions that require research skills, um, but it does allow you to get things like data cores. Now, if you've taken my my class on exploration and industry, then you probably know that data cores are a key component in manufacturing. So it's worth having them. Locator agents, these are agents that you can use to find people. Um, and it does require rather high standings, so we're going to talk about standings in a little bit. But locator agents find people. It's a very useful thing to have if you have it. Um, so speaking of standings, uh, standings are essentially basically uh, a point system that allows you to have a visual representation of how much an individual agent, corporation, or faction likes you or dislikes you. So every agent, corporation, and faction that you interact with, whether it's directly or indirectly, um, can have standings with you, and that can be plus or minus 10. They might really love you, right? They might really hate you. Or in some cases, you may not have any standings with a certain faction because you haven't really interacted with them. You haven't done any missions for them. You haven't done anything to piss them off. Um, so there's that. Um, in order to advance to higher level missions, you need to have a standing with that specific agent, corporation, or faction. Generally, most people will grind standings with a specific corporation. and then that will um, give them standings with the corporation and the agent, right? But that you can go to other agents within the same corporation and run missions for them as well. Um, it is important to note that if you are looking to do something with a faction or to increase your standings with a faction, or you're concerned about um, if you're concerned about your standings with a faction and you want to improve those, right? Missions don't increase your standings with the faction. So when we talk about faction, we're talking about Amar, Kaldari, Galente, um, Minmatar. Um, these are bigger than corporations, right? It could be um, we'll get into how you do, but it is a lot easier to damage your standings with each of these, especially factions, right? You harm a um, you harm citizens of a particular corporation and faction, NPC faction, your standings are going to decrease, right? Um, it's complicated, but it's important to recognize that while you're running missions, you're going to increase your standings with the agent and the corporation, not the faction. There is a way to increase your standings with the faction, but it's a lot easier to lose standings with factions, agents, corporations, and so on. Uh, so fun little thing, and you may have seen these if you've done any missioning at all and you're just kind of doing it casually. You may have seen one of these happen. You may have gotten an invitation to do one. Um, there are a specific type of mission called storylines, and storyline missions come up every 16th mission, every 16th regular mission that you do. Uh, you're going to get a message that says, "Hey, so and so, we need you," right? Like it'll send me a message, "Hey, Amoni Panala, I need your help," and it'll tell me like, "Come to this station, uh, talk to this person, and do this storyline mission for me," and hooray! Now, storyline missions are pretty much the same as other missions in terms of what you have to do. The difference is that it gives a massive bonus or a massive increase to your standings with the agent's corporation. Not necessarily the agent, but the corporation. It does give an increased standing to the faction. So if this corporation is part of the um, Kaldari, Amar, you know, I'll just say Edencom, whatever, um, whatever faction they belong to, you are also going to have a increase in standings with them. It's not huge, but it is a thing. Um, and you're also going to see some decrease in standings, right? So we call uh, the knock-on effects of doing stuff. There's the primary increases or decreases, and then there's derived standings, which are like um, 15 minutes later. There's what we call a server tick, and suddenly you'll get a little notification that says your standings with the Blood Raiders or the Sancha Nation or whatever has decreased, right? Typically, that's what you see because you're shooting pirates, pirate NPCs and whatnot. But when you do these big faction missions, uh, you might get standings decreases with certain other factions. So like it's typically going to be whoever they're at war with. So Galente, it's going to be a decrease with the Keldari. The Minmatar, it's going to be a decrease standings with the Amar, and vice versa, right? Now, if you want to avoid doing that, if you want to avoid losing decreased standings, you need to avoid any mission that involves shooting another faction's people. So you can decline missions once every 4 hours without a significant standings decrease. If you do it too often, you will lose standings, right? So in this example here, I have a mission from this character, this security agent in Emignon, and it says that she wants me to go investigate this disturbance at the location of a bookmark, deal with any hostiles, then report back to your agent. Now, this is related to the Amar, and we see the symbol here, right? It's been conveniently blown up here. This is related to the Amar, so chances are good that the hostiles that we're going to find are Amar. And if we shoot the Amar, well, now our faction standings are going to go down with the Amar. So, now, after considering all of this, you can either accept, which is going to start the mission. Now, it doesn't matter whether you do it right away or later. Um, there often is a bonus reward to doing it within a certain amount of time, right? So in my example here, it's 3 hours and 8 minutes, but you could also decline it, right? So this generates a new mission, but then again, if you do it within 4 minutes or within 4 hours of canceling or declining another mission, you are going to lose standings. And you can delay it. This is essentially um, the offer to take up this mission still exists, but it's going to not be right in front of you. It's going to sit in your journal, and I'll talk about your journal in a minute here. So, just to give you a general idea, and there are certainly some cheese fits that will be like an exception to this, but in general, you can do level 1 missions in a frigate, right? And that's for uh, level 1 security, level 1 mining, um, and distribution. Um, Distribution, as I said earlier, it a number of those are actually combat missions, which is very, very annoying. So pay attention to that. Like if you're gonna, I think a very popular option is like a Sunesis because it has such a large cargo hold. If you are going to bring a Sunesis, be aware that some of the distribution missions are combat at the lower level. Once you get into the L2s, L3s, L4s, you're not gonna see that as much, like for sure not beyond L2. Um, at the L2 level, we have destroyers and cruisers, right? You can still use a Venture. You should be okay to use a Venture for mining missions and distribution. Like I said, one of the more popular ones is a Synesis, but literally anything with around 450 meters cubed is probably going to be fine. I never needed the entire cargo capacity of a Synesis, so don't feel like you have to go out and buy a very specific ship, especially if it feels too pricey for you. Any ship with a large enough cargo hold can do it. Um, at the L3 level, these are going to be your battle cruisers, right? So this might be like a Drake or a Myrmidon. Um, with mining, you're going to be using a mining barge, uh, probably something like a retriever, coveter, procure, depending on where you are. And for the distribution missions, um, now you're going to want to fly something that's actually meant for hauling. Um, do be aware that flying around in an industrial makes you a target, even though you're running missions and probably not hauling anything super valuable. There are some people that will just want to blow you up just because you're in an industrial. You're in a hauling ship, right? I'm just realizing that we don't call them industrials anymore. They're just haulers. Um, once you get to L4s, that's the battleship level, right? So I've seen people run missions in Ravens, Praxi, or Praxis. I've seen people do them in Marauders, right? Like, Paladins are a big favorite. Um, Rattlesnakes, for, uh, like Tinker rattlesnakes or whatever. Mining missions, L4 mining missions are going to be exhumers because you need that extra cargo capacity or the mining bay, the mining cargo bay. Distribution. This is going to probably need to be uh, like a DST. Obviously, you don't necessarily need to use a DST, um, but that's typically what I've seen people doing L4s in is like a well-fit DST that can align fast and do the MWD cloak trick. Now there are L5s, but these are only available in LowSec, and they are not available as mining missions or distribution missions. They require like a big fleet, and they are, or I guess you could do them with caps. Um, sounds like a great way to get ganked, but you know, whatever. I don't judge. There is a strategy to thinking about how these progressions of the ship sizes and classes and all that good stuff. So, if you are wanting to get to L4, right, maybe talk to some people who do missioning already and talk about what they fly for L4s. Um, and then you can start training into that as you do L1s, L2s, L3s, and then eventually make it up to L4s. For example, if you are thinking, I want to fly a Raven when I get to L4s. Okay. Uh, start with something very simple like a Kestrel. Run your L1s in a Kestrel. Okay. Uh, then upgrade to the Corax, or even a. I think a lot of them you could probably just do in a Cormorant if you want. And then when you get to some of the harder missions, switch to a Caracal. Um, once you've got all this trained up, right? Then you can then you can skill into the Drake and run L3s. And then you can skill into the Raven finally and start running your L4s. But the point is that you don't have to stop running missions just because you can't fly, the largest ships available, right? Just run these missions, grind out your standings so that you can work your way up to the L4s. And all the while, you can be upgrading your ship, improving your skills, getting better performance out of your ship as you run these missions, which means that you can run these missions quicker and easier. And of course, you can fly whatever you want. Um, but typically the meta favors, right? The sort of way people typically run these is in either missile boats or drone boats. So it's up to you. Now, in terms of how you fit out ships, the short answer is you look into what enemy type you have, and you're going to tank your ship based on the enemy type. That's the simple answer. It's a little more complex than that, and it's a good idea to like read what your missions are before you run them. Um, so, for example, here our wiki has a lot of good information on missions, and will give you a breakdown of here's what's attacking you, here's the kind of damage they do, here is the kind of e-war they use, and all that good stuff. Um, it is a good idea to read that, to pay attention to, okay, um, I need to I need to fit my ship up, right, to tank uh, thermal and kinetic, right? I need to take my ship for EM and thermal, right? It depends on who you're going up against, but always, always, always check, because you can get better efficiency out of just tanking your ship for the kinds of rats that you're shooting, um, you, rather than trying to just omni tank it and hope that that's good enough. Um, you don't have to guess. You can just read up on what these missions require. Um, make sure that you know what ranges the rats are going to be flying at. Because if you are shooting at, if you're shooting, I don't know why you would do this, but let's say you had hams, heavy assault missiles. You're going to have very short range, and the rats are out at 40, 50 kilometers. Well, you're not going to hit anything out there. So be prepared, know how far out the rats are going to be when you run the mission. Make sure that you do know what kind of E-war they use, because if they scram, uh, you're going to need to deal with that first, right? That's generally the priority, is kill anything that scrams first. Um, kill anything that newts, kill anything that jams, kill anything that damps, and then kill anything that webs. Scrams are obviously the most important because um, if you are singled out for a gank and you're scrammed, you can't warp off. As long as you are not scrammed by the rats, you can warp off to try and get to safety. Um, so, generally speaking, you always want to kill scrams first. Now, in the beginning, you're probably not going to run into scrams. L1s, L2s, I have never run into any scrams, but it will come up eventually. Okay, so if you are running missions, let's say you needed to take a break and now you're coming back to a mission and you don't really remember where you're supposed to go, you can find the locations in your people and places window, right? So I have a helpful little screenshot there. Um, you can also read your journal, right? So if you remember um, in the uh, in the offer box when you are looking at an agent's missions and they're asking you to do something, you have the option to accept, decline, or delay. If you delay, it's going to show up in your journal as offered, right? So if you decide to delay, you can you can accept it from the journal. Do be aware that missions can expire, especially those storyline missions. They will expire, and you'll get like a message from uh, you'll get a message from the agent saying something like, "I'm so disappointed in you." It's very dramatic. Um, if you need to go to another system, it's gonna show up. Um, this is a real brain off quality of life feature that it's going to tell you, hey, go to this system, and it'll give you a button to set your destination to that location. If you need to warp to a dead space location, so that's generally going to be like a random point in space somewhere in the system that is not related to anything else. It's not a station. It's not a combat site or anything like that. It is just a random space, random spot in space that the server has picked out for this mission. Uh, it's going to give you a button that says warp to location. You click on that, it's going to warp to you. If you are if you are in the mission system and it says that you need to set destination, you're in the wrong system. So read the mission details because sometimes you might jump uh, to the wrong system, especially if you're not paying attention, or especially if the mission is in a has like a number of jumps you have to go. Um, this I think happens most often when you're doing like epic arcs. I know that the first time I ran um, the Bloodstained Stars Sisters of Eve epic arc, I frequently went to the wrong system because I was all confused about how far I needed to go. And that's a series of missions that'll take you everywhere. Um, when you finish a mission, it'll tell you to return to the agent. Sometimes you'll get missions that you can remote complete, but in general, you're going to be docking up. You're going to be saying to the agent like, hey, I did the thing, now pay me. Um, and you don't have to remember what station it is, right? So once you're in the same system as your agent, you can just hit dock and it'll warp you to the station where your agent is, and then you'll start the conversation, complete the mission. Congratulations, now you get paid. Um, I got a little ahead of myself. Um, Make sure that you're reading the mission details, because are, if you miss something, if you forgot to um, pick something up out of a can, right? This is one of the things that I see most often, or one of the things I've experienced the most often when running missions, is it's like it wants you to shoot a bunch of rats and then pull something out of a can somewhere on the mission site. And I'm like, why can't I finish this? It says I'm back at the station now. I'm waiting to turn in this mission, but it won't let me. Um, and instead, it's telling me I need to undock, I need this, I need that. So read read the mission details if you're ever confused about why it won't let you turn in the mission or complete the mission. Also, make sure that you have your Eve University overview set up for missions, because we do have mission a mission setting that you can use, either large collidables or um, PVX missions. These are going to allow you to see mission related objects in space. And so, if you're not using Eve University's overview, please be sure, especially if you're a member of Eve University, you should be using Eve University's overview. It's very important because it'll tell you some important friend or foe information. If you are not a member of Eve University and um, you want to try out Eve University's overview and see if you like it, go for it. It's actually derived from um, other overview setups, uh, but definitely Eve University folks should be using the Eve University overview. Now, if you want to get the most out of mission running, do it with friends. The best ship in the game is friendship, but not just because hanging out with other people is fun. It's also a way to have more than one person picks up missions, right? And you can also have people who maybe they're pulling L3s and you can only pull L2s. Well, that's fine, but now you all get the benefit of those L3s if you run them together. So if you are in fleets with each other, you all are going to get the benefits. It's going to split the payouts, it's going to split the standings. Um, Everything is going to be split among your fleet members. Um, be sure to train up your social skills. Your social skills will increase rewards. It can also increase your standings. Um, it does. That is a bit of an SP investment, but if you love mission running, if that's the kind of content that really is fun for you in EVE Online, that's great, and social skills might help you get more out of it. And of course, upgrade your ship. And maybe it's not. Maybe the ship is fine, but maybe you need to upgrade your fit, right? Um, I will say be careful about blinging things out too much, depending on where you're running missions, right? Make sure that you know the amount of money you're putting on grid to run the mission is not so much that you couldn't make it back you couldn't replace that ship, right? We always say don't undock what you can't afford to lose, but also just, be aware that like there's a real risk of losing something to ganks. The bling, the more bling you put on your ship. Um, and like I said, advanced social skills will give you an increase in standings. But if you also can get increased LP rewards, it is a bit more of a skill investment. Eventually, you can get to a point where you have memorized missions, right? Just like I've memorized a bunch of combat sites. I've done so many combat sites with uh, the wormhole community at Eve University that I could probably do a bunch of them just by memory, right? I remember the waves, I remember which rats do what, all that stuff. You can do the same with missions, and it will allow you to run missions faster um, in what we typically call like blitzing, right? You will also become aware of which wrecks are going to give you the best loot. Um, Oftentimes, you're going to get bounty payouts, especially the security missions. You're going to get bounty payouts, and then you're also going to have loot and salvage. It is a good idea to start learning where the value of each mission is. Is it in the salvage? Is it in the loot? Or is it in the bounty? Or maybe it's a combination of all of them. And some missions are just going to be garbage for that, for all three. Also, keep in mind that you can set up where you're going to run your missions, right? So you can stage supplies for mission running in your desired area, right? So, like, uh, for Eve University, it's very common for people to run missions in Amignon. A lot of people do missions from the Garoon investment, Garoon Investment Bank. Um, So you might have ships docked up in Eminion. You might have extra mobile tractor units. Maybe you have extra ships so that you can run with friends who don't normally run missions. It all depends on what you need, but keep that stuff there, right? And stage it in that system so that, you know, if you are, um, if you go to do something else, maybe you like doing a little PvP from time to time, make sure that you have all your stuff set up so you can get right back to it when you're ready for it. Also, you may want to have some pods set up. Maybe you have a specific head for running missions. Maybe you have some specific drugs that you use when running missions. There are some social enhancing drugs. The Glamorex booster is the one that comes to mind. It does give you a social standing if you are trying to grind your standings. Um, so there's that. If you are going to run L4s, this is more of a safety thing. Do it in a point 0.5 system that's at least 2 jumps away from low sec. The reason for this is that sometimes your missions will require you to travel. You don't want to be diving into low sec unless you are intentionally looking to do missions in low sec. Um, a lot of high sec to low sec gates are camped, and if somebody becomes aware of the fact that there is a mission running group that has to jump into low sec for missions, they will camp those gates and start blowing up your mission running ships. So be aware of that. So, uh, I mentioned LP or loyalty points at the beginning, but I haven't really explained what they are. They're a special kind of currency, and y your loyalty points are specific to the uh, faction and corporation corporation that you ran these missions for. So when you run missions, you're going to get some money, you're going to get some loyalty points, and you're going to get some standings with the agent and the corporation, right? That LP can then be brought to uh, specific specific stations that are owned by that corporation or that faction, and you can then buy items using the loyalty points. Now, usually it's a combination of loyalty points and ISK, so it's not like the loyalty points by themselves, but it is a great way to get specific items that may not be available anywhere else. Like a lot of faction things are a lot cheaper to get from LP stores. There are specific kinds of drones and fighters that you can only get from LP stores. So it can be a huge benefit to have loyalty points from specific groups, and you can pull different things. Um, and if you are interested in selling it, one of the easiest ways is to just buy things that you know are valuable, or that that market data is telling you are valuable. Things like implants are usually good. Um, or you find somebody who wants loyalty points, who wants something from your loyalty points store. So you can say, like, want to sell X number of loyalty points, and people will people will be able to figure out, okay, that many loyalty points, I can get this thing I need. Um, but do be careful. Every once in a while, you will find somebody who's dishonest and trying to rip you off. Um, and vice versa. There are some people who are claiming to sell LP and they'll rip you off as soon as you give them the money. They won't give you the thing. So, all right. Now, if you do have questions, like I said, since this is not a live class, go ahead and leave them as a comment to this video, and I will try to get to as many of them as possible. Um, can't promise to do all of them, but I will do my best. And of course, if you have the time and energy, be sure to like, subscribe, and share with somebody who may want to learn more about running missions. Any of my videos that you share with people is a huge help because that's how most folks are going to discover my videos if you found them helpful. Otherwise, I wish you all the best. Fly dangerously, my friends.